You should make a video about things you were writing about. You know, I actually think that one thing is important. Order. The universe does not... See, I want to kind of talk crazy for a moment. The universe does not really have order. Order is how we perceive things. It really is something that you can't separate from the mind. I kind of take it like the way some philosophers look at the fact that time and space cannot be separated from the mind that perceives it. And I think it's the same thing with order. There has to be a perception. Order is primarily a psychological thing. It's primarily psychological in nature. Same thing with time. Time is psychological in nature. Now, we may have clocks, to measure time. But a clock doesn't really measure time. The idea of a clock measuring time is an illusion. That's an illusion, that we're measuring time. Any more than we're measuring distance when we take a measuring stick. I don't have my little measuring stick around here, but if I hit it, I could play with that for a while and say we're measuring space. The length of things, like the length of this pen. We're measuring space. The space between my hands is the length of this pencil or this pen. We're measuring space. But space itself is not anything you can take in through your senses. But you are conscious of it. You're conscious of space. There's more space between me and that wall, the back wall, than between me and that camera. There's less space here and there's more space there. And if you brought in a bunch of people in here, assuming they don't have neurological issues, which is a significant fact, by the way, because in some cases, people do have certain neurological disorders where they actually cannot distinguish distances in space. And that does happen sometimes when there's damage to the brain, because that part of your brain that processes can't do it. It has to be processed in the mind in order for us to perceive it. In time. That's the way it is. Time and space are things we perceive. Things that we are the result of processing it in our minds. But it's like so many other things we perceive, like beauty. We perceive things as beautiful. We perceive things as ugly. It's like when you meet somebody. See, I get to thinking, there are people I can look at and I can say, that person is ugly. But, I get to thinking, I don't really think of people as being ugly or pretty. But I get to thinking that everything in the world is depending on what you look at, how you think about it. It's all a matter of how you process it in your mind. Just like things being silly. Caring about squirrels. As I care about squirrels. My little baby. Who are you? My little babies. I love the little squirrels. You care about them. Is that silly? Is it silly for me to care about squirrels? No, it's not silly. It's, but that's a matter of how you think about it. Just like, when I made my video, that was a big controversial video that I made that I never put up on YouTube. Was that being disrespectful? That's a matter of one person's interpretation of it. And that person can sell that ideal to other people. And other people may actually buy into that. Some ideals are easy to sell. And some are harder. And it's always funny that the things that are harder for people to accept wind up being the things that work. I remember reading how the Eiffel Tower was actually seen by a lot of people as being rather ugly. And some people may still think that today, but most people cannot even imagine Paris without the Eiffel Tower. Yet when it was first built, though, a lot of people complained about it and criticized it and thought it was the most horrible thing, and it was like a scar on Paris. And now it's, if it wasn't there, you know, it would just Paris just wouldn't seem like Paris without the Eiffel Tower. How people see things can change over time. So we can look back and say, you know, was it really an ugly thing? Not really. If it changed, if our view of it changed. Just like what seemed sensible at one time, when you look back on it, it seems silly. And sometimes things that you thought were silly at one time now seem sensible. Maybe, for example, there was a company that just started and it was going to make a product. Let's say something like iPods or something. And you thought, well, that's silly. Nobody likes that. Nobody would use that product. That's so crazy. So you decide not to invest in it. You decide to invest in some other thing. Like pen, you know, warmers or something. I just imagine, you know, crazy products. But so you decide to invest all your money in that idea, which you thought was a great idea in the iPod thingies. You decided not to. And then years later, you realize that, wow, I wish I had forget about those pen warmers and went for the iPod thingies. Because one ideal seemed silly at one time and the other ideal seemed great, but then you realize, now you see it in the reverse order. The great ideal is silly and the silly ideal is great. Because the outcome. You know, outcome changes everything. You know, it's like everybody wants to be down with the winners. Everybody wants to be in a winner's circle, so we all see it a certain way. You invest in something. See, I kind of look at my life that way. You know, I'm going to be a winner. You become a winner. You become a winner because you make winning choices. You know, like Charlie Sheen say, I'm by winning. Win here, win there. What else can you say? One day, when my videos become viral and millions of people watch them, and I have better equipment, people can say, I was with Philip from the very beginning. That could happen. You never know.